So, hey, you know what I just heard on TikTok is that there's a divide between boomers and millennials. I never would have thought. But hey, our kids are millennials, and they seem to think that boomers have ruined the world for them.
I wouldn't go that far, but some millennials have a lot of anger towards boomers. There was one guy who had a TikTok who was saying that you could, as a boomer, you could be a grocery store clerk, have a wife who stays at home, have two kids who go to camps and you put them through college, you have a house, you have two cars, vacations, and you retire with a pension. Well, I think that's a pretty big exaggeration.
Oh, I know it is. I mean, really, that seems like they're saying that, you don't even have to really work, although grocery store workers do work hard. They do work hard. And in the old days, when there was a union in grocery stores, some of the grocery store workers did end up with a pension.
Now, well, he's saying in general, he's not saying how hard they worked. He's saying that they had safety nets, they had protections, that they made enough money that one person didn't have to work and they took vacations and had cars, that they didn't have the struggles that millennials are having today.
Well, you have to know that through our life, we have struggled. During our first years of marriage, it was a lot of scrimping, saving, budgeting, not being able to buy things that other people were able to get. And we both had college degrees and had a pretty good job. So I don't really understand where millennials are saying that boomers had it easy. I mean, nothing was ever easy.
Well, we do appreciate that millennials are struggling, that things are ridiculous today, from housing to daycare to college. It is ridiculous, and we should have government subsidies for daycare. We should have more affordable housing. We should have better paying jobs because CEOs are taking the bulk of the money. So we do understand millennials' point, but our point is...
Right.
That we are struggling too. It's not a you are or we are. We are all struggling.
Right, exactly. And so it's not just that boomers have everything and millennials have nothing. I think everybody is in the same boat, and we're all just trying to move along in this game called life.
Well, some people are doing very well. Now, ironically, we do know 4 people who were grocery store workers who are boomers. One was my cousin, whose wife did stay at home, but they struggled greatly living on one income. They didn't take vacations. I don't know if they put their kids through college. I wasn't close to this cousin because he's about 76 right now. But his wife did later go back to work, and she got an MBA, and I believe her income helped greatly. She was able to get a good job and get an MBA. I think she worked for a university in Chicago. Now, there's my sister and her husband. They worked at grocery stores as well. And they were doing pretty well. They had great vacation, great benefits, great union. But then the grocery store went bankrupt. So they both lost their jobs in their late 40s, 50s. So they had to get jobs late in life. And my brother-in-law worked till he was 70. And my sister is still working at 67 today.
Exactly.
And, I mean, they did get a house on that income. They did have... children in daycare. They did take some vacations, and they do have pensions. But the pensions have been greatly reduced because the store went bankrupt. And then the 4th person we know is Steve's brother, who worked at a grocery store.
That's right. And he doesn't have a pension, and he doesn't travel very much at all or anywhere. And, he's just barely scraping by.
I'd say he's right above the poverty level. He doesn't even use heat in Philadelphia because he can't afford it. And at 74, he is still working at a grocery store. And he doesn't eat much, doesn't go out much. So he didn't work there his whole career, though. But he didn't have a union, so he didn't have the benefits. So I don't think it's between boomers and millennials. I think it's if you had a union or didn't have a union determines if you are doing very well. So some boomers are doing well, and yeah, we're envious of them as well that they do have pensions and are comfortable.
Right.
I read that boomers should be split in half between the top half and bottom half. We are the later boomers, so we are the ones who don't have the pensions and technically shouldn't even be considered boomers. It's the older boomers who are the ones who may have pensions and Social Security and good retirements. Although I did ask Steve, I said, do you know anybody who is having a good retirement? Because I don't. My 3 brother-in-laws worked till their 70s. Steve is working, well, trying to work since he lost his job because of ageism and whatever. He hopes to work till almost 70. His brother is working at 74. Now, his 82-year-old brother, who is actually the silent generation, did have a pension and is doing quite a bit better than the other brother. But I'm saying in general, I don't know any boomers who are traveling and just
Right.
having fun. I think they're all struggling. They're struggling with medicine costs, food costs, housing costs, insurance
Everything.
costs. I don't know any boomer who is just going out having fun. I mean, to prove this point a little bit, we went to volunteer at the senior center, and they said they couldn't use us. We don't understand how they could not use us. But I asked her what the average age of seniors who visit the center to come and play games and take classes, and she said the average age of people coming is 75. And I said, 75?
Wow.
Doesn't anybody in their 60s come? And she said, no, they have to work. And I was like, most people are 75. I don't think I'm even going to be alive at 75. I
There you
was
go.
like, so I think that's a little bit odd that people don't use the senior center until they're 75. That says to me they're working till they're like 70 or something.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. That today, people are working as they age, and so it's kind of a need that they have to work.
We do have one neighbor who's turning 92, and he retired in 1989 from
Wow.
GM in Atlanta and got a pension. Still getting that same pension, which has been every year adjusted for inflation, cost of living.
Wow.
And we're just amazed.
Yeah.
He said his aunt lived to 108, so he said they didn't get their money out of that pension. He has a pretty good sense of humor.
Yeah.
But we just can't even imagine. And I had suspected we didn't know him, and I was guessing because he built his house in 1965, and I was guessing he probably had been retired for over 30 years.
Yeah.
So there are some, and they're not boomers again. They are the silent
generation.
So yeah, and I read an
Yeah.
article about that you are blaming the silent generation who got most of the benefits on the boomers
Right.
because there's such a division
Yeah.
and so much hatred. Because millennials are so frustrated at their struggles that they want to blame someone and they're blaming boomers, and I see it every day. And I know there are some of the people in positions of power
Yeah.
who did cause some of this who are boomers. But that doesn't mean that all of us should be accountable for what some politicians did, and politicians we didn't even vote for did.
Right, and so, it's kind of like the millennials are blaming their parents or their parents' generation, the boomers, and that's just not fair. It's not that it's all boomers that caused this problem.
Well, estrangement is up now. I believe it's 25% of children are estranged from their parents, these grown children. And I believe this goes along with this because the millennials are struggling so greatly. And they want to blame someone, they blame their parents. Because there are all these TikToks and YouTube and books and things saying that it's the boomers' fault. And then therapists, and I shouldn't even say this, it's just the impression I got, therapists are generally millennials, so they are encouraging their clients to blame the parents for their struggles.
Right.
And I empathize with their struggles. I've always empathized. I've worked in daycares, and you got paid minimum wage, and I do believe that they should be subsidized by government. We need babies. The government is trying to encourage babies, but nobody can afford them with daycares. I don't know what the average is, like $1,200 to $1,500 a month for one child, which is, I don't know. I saw another TikTok on that. Some people are paying up to almost $3,000 a month for daycare.
Wow.
And then
That's
mortgages. Yeah, we've been asking younger people what their mortgages are, and it's been between $3,000 and $3,600, which would be about the average mortgage today at 7% now.
Right.
And then they say, when I tell my parents that, my parents say, but our mortgage was at 18%. Well, ours was at, what was ours at? I don't remember. It was like 12 or 14. But they say, but then the millennial says, but your house was so much cheaper. Now, here's the thing. They say that millennials are paying 30 to 50% of their income in their mortgage. We paid 50% of our income to a mortgage.
Right.
So even though it was a lower mortgage, our pay was quite a bit lower, and
Right.
we paid half of our income to a mortgage. We did not go out to dinner. We did not go on vacations. We did not get new cars. So we are struggling. We struggled back then. Yeah, I know today is a lot tougher, especially with healthcare costs if you're not healthy. But we did not
Right.
live in this luxurious life.
Yeah, it's all relative to the times that you were living in. I mean, inflation has just gone up and up and up. So prices have gone up and up and up in everything. Value has also gone up and up. But I believe that it's relative to the times that you're living in. The times when we got married and we were buying a house and that kind of thing, we paid what the average mortgage rate was at that time, and we struggled.
Well, and another thing
and we
is,
struggled.
Steve got caught in reorganizations frequently, and to get another job had to move. So for him moving, I was unable to get a career level job. So I had to sacrifice my career. So we had to lose that income in these moves. So he moved for all these corporate moves, and they weren't loyal to him. As soon as they could make more money, they got rid of him. When it was a line on their spreadsheet where they saved money, they reorganized and got rid of him. And so today there's so many jobs online that if you move, you could work online.
Anywhere.
So you could follow your spouse,
Right.
maybe.
Right.
Or if you're a nurse or something, or a medical worker, you are in high demand, or could be a travel one.
Right.
So there's more opportunities for today's people, today's couples, for both people to move and both have a career. And another thing is daycares. There weren't that many daycares. When our son was born over 30 years ago, there weren't that many, and the ones that there were not safe. I mean, the ones I worked in, I did not feel comfortable taking a child to these daycares. So you didn't have a lot of options. Today there are more daycares. So there's more daycares, there's more support for women working. So it's not that we could live on one income. We struggled and made sacrifices to live on one income, which I would have loved to have kept my career.
Anyone can live on one income if you sacrifice. I mean,
It depends on the income.
It depends. If you're making $10 an hour or something, it's probably not going to happen.
Well,
But if you're making more than that, then you can probably just sacrifice. And I know the words are simple. Just sacrifice.
oh, that's exactly what millennials hate in their TikToks. When their boomer parent says, just work harder.
Sacrifice,
No,
yeah.
just work hard. Just get a second. No, we don't say get a second or third job.
Yeah.
We don't. If you're working a 40-hour-week job, no, we don't believe you should work 2 or 3 jobs. And I don't know. Everything would have to line up for you to live on one income. Like maybe I've seen people move to tiny homes with a child, or maybe get a duplex and rent out half. You would have to really, really be diligent in your planning. I mean, honestly, we've made a video that if we were 30 today, we would not have children.
Right. So we wouldn't have children, and we possibly wouldn't buy a house either. I mean, it's nice to have a place that you call your own, and it's something that you're going to eventually, in 30 years, have full ownership of. But there's a lot of maintenance, property tax.
Well, that was another.
That was another.
That millennials said boomers buy their house for $30,000 and then sell it 30 years later for $450,000, and they think they're just getting their profit. But what's the reality there, Steve?
So the reality is that you have paid money all along to maintain the house, to keep up the landscaping of the house, to fix any kind of problems at the house. The interest that you pay on your mortgage, your 30-year loan from the bank, to own that house. There's a lot of expense that goes into owning a house. And, you just really have to think long and hard. Is it worth it?
Well, first of all, if you've kept it 30 years, it's 30 years outdated. So you're going to spend easily 100, 150, 200 to get it in shape to show it and sell it. Okay, so you paid, what I say, 30, so it's 200 to get it in shape, but then you got to get a new roof, that's 10 or 20. You've got to fix the plumbing, get new toilets, whatever. You've got to do a whole lot. You've got to decorate it, paint the whole thing, landscape. And then you got to pay those realtors' fees. You're not getting that money. They take it good. I always say about 10% comes out the top for realtors' fees, closing costs, and then you got to do any repairs that they find when you go to sell and they find that you need repairs.
Right. And we have bought and sold quite a few houses.
And we've lost.
And but
broke even.
The thing is that we've always had to do some fixing up in the houses. And these houses that we bought, except for maybe 2 of them, were built new. But if you've lived in them for a couple of years, you still have to paint or fix some things. So it still costs you. And so you really have to think about whether it's worth it to get an apartment, townhouse, rather than buy a house. The apartment or townhouse, of course, some people say you're throwing away your money, but your money is paying for you to live there. So you would be throwing away your money, if you want to call it that, on interest of a mortgage, on fix-ups to the house, on plumbing or whatever needs to be fixed in the house, plus insurance. Insurance is much more expensive when you own a house than when you're renting.
Well, there's one more thing to consider. When you say you bought your house for 30 or whatever, which is not true, houses were more like 100,000 30 years ago. Back then, there really weren't even a lot of apartments. There were not. So you didn't actually have a choice. When we moved to Georgia over 30 years ago, it was cheaper to buy a house than to rent an apartment. There was only a handful, and they were expensive or run down. There weren't that many. There were not that many apartments.
Right.
So you were kind of forced into a house. So the things that you look at, these are called systemic, that we made these decisions together. Like right now, millennials complain boomers won't leave their houses. Well, there's nowhere for them to go because rents are sky high. It's not just hurting millennials, it's hurting boomers. Boomers can't go into an apartment because it's actually cheaper to stay in their house than to pay $3,000 a month rent. So boomers are staying in their homes. So it's not like we have a choice. We would prefer an apartment, but we can't afford $3,000 a month rent. So we are staying in our home, and it's not what we would like to do.
Exactly. So, the debate goes on. Is it boomers that have ruined the world for millennials?
Or who is the real culprit? Is it really
or who's the real
government
culprit
or CEOs or other people who are really benefiting off of all of us?
Right, exactly. Is it pharmaceutical companies?
Instead of fighting boomers against millennials, should we all be on the same team and band together to demand lower drug prices, lower housing? I mean, daycare is important for us too. We have a grandchild as well as benefiting from the younger generation who are going to be our caregivers and have the jobs in the future. So we need children. So instead of blaming us that you can't afford rent and your student loans, perhaps we should all band together to protest for reform.
That's right. Teamwork gets it done. And so that's where we're coming from today. This video, it's real important that you subscribe and that you give us a thumbs up and hit notifications and comment. Put your comments below. We'd love to hear from you.
We sure would. We don't get a lot of comments. We've been making more videos since Steve's lost his job. He's had a lot more time, although applying for a job is a job in itself. In the just 5 or 6 weeks now, I think, has it been about 5 weeks since you lost your job? He's applied for probably 400 at this point, right?
Right. Yep.
400,
Yep.
and there's
Yep.
so many hoops. Like we know all the millennials are saying the hoops you got to go through for a job, 4, 5, 6 interviews, and the job isn't real.
That's right. Having the interview with 3 people on a conference call is not comforting, and then you don't hear back. Or
You get ghosted.
Yeah, you get ghosted, or interviewing on a camera.
And when the other person doesn't
the
have
other
their
person
camera
has it
on,
off,
but you have to have yours on.
Yeah, but you have to have yours on. I mean, that's just rude, So the fight goes on, and we'll end up with something at some point, sometime, somewhere.
The point is, we are more alike than different.
That's right, we are. We are.
We are more alike than different.
We're just older, more seasoned.
But we have the same issues, and we're on your side. So look out for our other videos. Look in the description. I'll have some links. And until we see you again,
take it easy.